Hello everyone and welcome to the first video on this channel. My name is Paps. I will try to bring you weekly content to Japanese wrestling, and we are kicking things off with a format that I wanted to do for a very long time. In general, the YouTube channel is something I wanted to do for a very long time, so I hope you guys enjoy my content on here because I will do a lot of content, especially with the G1 Climax coming up. But this one is a new format I want to start. It's something I wanted to do for a while. Title run reviews, where I'm reviewing title runs, talk about the matches, the great moments, and everything around it. And why I plan this to be a more recent format, with the topics mainly being title runs that just ended, like this one, for example, or title runs that are just 1 year ago or something. If you want me to review some older title reigns, just please leave the recommendations in the comment section or just DM me on Twitter at @peps_wrestling what title run you want me to review. And maybe if I have time for that, because life isn't easy and I have only a limited amount of videos I can do, I will maybe do that in the future. The first reign I will review on this channel, the first reign I will in general talk about here, is the 162-day-long NEVER Openweight title run of Konosuke Takeshita in New Japan Pro Wrestling, who not only defended the title successfully in Japan, but also in America and Mexico, which makes this title reign alone stand out. It feels like a worldwide title reign, and the title run is highly praised among fans, but actually, how good was it? And how does it compare to other New Japan NEVER Openweight title runs? That and more is what I will talk about in this video. And with that, welcome to the first title run review. I would just say we get things started and talk about all the title defenses first. We start off where he won the championship, New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Kingdom 19 in the Tokyo Dome, January 4th. We have a double title match, NEVER Openweight title, AW International title. Konosuke Takeshita defeats Shingo Takagi 11 minutes and 42 seconds with the Raging Fire. It was a title defense, the failed second challenge for Shingo Takagi, and with that, Takeshita becomes the 47th champion. This match was basically set up after Takeshita issued an open challenge following his AW International Championship defense against TJP at the US show of New Japan Fighting Spirit Unleashed. Shingo Takagi accepted the challenge, which was a big surprise when that happened, because nobody really expected we would get a double title match. And while the match was originally initially for the Takagi's NEVER Openweight Championship, based on Takeshita still being the AW International Champion, by that time it would become a title versus title match. And just like a title versus title match should be, it felt big from the moment they showed the graphic at the Tokyo Dome, because the 24,000 people in the venue just cheered when they saw what match is coming up, and it felt like a very big moment based on that alone, and that's really important. The entrances elevated the match itself as well, because both Takeshita and Takagi had their big match intros and had amazing gear to walk down the Tokyo Dome ramp. In general, for Takeshita, it was a very important match because this was his actual first real Tokyo Dome match. Something Japanese wrestling, of course, dreams of. Something he tried to work towards as a DDT wrestler. He had some comedy match in a Tokyo Dome without any fans. So this was his first actual match, like I said. And for Takeshita, who was the CDT ace for a very long time, worked in a much smaller promotion in Japan, went over to America to AEW, became a household name there, became the AEW International Champion, defeating Will Ospreay and Ricochet in a three-way match to win the belt. Him coming out here with his theme song, with his DDT theme song, with Don Callis next to him, with the AEW belt, walking down the Tokyo Dome, felt like a career-achieving moment for him. Much bigger than some of the title wins itself. It just shows you as a fan that this guy, he made it to the top of Japan, and he worked hard for it. And you will see it in the title reign. Well, everyone knows how great Takeshita is, but you will especially see in the title reign that he takes this role very serious. Doesn't matter where he is on the card, it just feels like he's glad to have this kind of spot. To the match itself, I thought the match started off well with quick counter sequence before it went into the elbow exchanges and big bumps. The first really big move was the Frankenstein from the top rope by Takeshita. That was super impressive. Like, this guy is huge, both in terms of being tall and just in terms of his body. And seeing him pulling out that with ease is always like impressive. As well as the reverse Frankensteiner counters for both Shingo Takagi, who you don't see these kind of moves often, just in a very big matches, and Takeshita as well later in the match. I thought the finishing stretch was good. The one fall counts worked because they were just going back and forth before Takeshita hits the Raging Fire to win his first title in New Japan Pro Wrestling with the NEVER Openweight title, but also defended his AEW International Championship. I thought, and that is maybe an unpopular opinion, that the match was good. Nothing more, just good. I liked it a lot more when I watched it live, but going back to it, it shows me the flaws of the match. At point, it felt like both were just going through the motions rather than creating an exciting match, especially from Shingo's part. It felt like he was just working a typical Shingo Takagi match rather than Shingo Takagi who is coming out at Tokyo Dome defending his belt. And that is my huge issue with it. It felt like a good main event of a G1 Climax Day 11 in the middle of nowhere type of match, rather than a Tokyo Dome title defense where two titles, especially AEW belt as well, is on the line. And I think that is like kind of what holds us back from me from being like great. I thought it was still really good, but not that great. And if we are looking ahead to his first defense tomorrow, like the day after at Wrestle Dynasty against Tomohiro Ishii, you just notice a big difference in terms of quality, because this match didn't really have the last spark that it needed to become the next level. And I think it's mainly because I thought Shingo's performance was kind of lackluster. It wasn't Takeshita's best night either, but still, like, their good is for many wrestlers, maybe one of the best matches of their career. So there's that. In terms of like ratings or something, I would give it like 3.75 for the arguments given. A really good match, but hasn't hit great for me. Then we come to New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Dynasty, where Konosuke Takeshita defended his NEVER Openweight title for the first time. He also put the AEW International Championship on the line here as well. Double title match against the challenger Tomohiro Ishii. And Takeshita won the match in 13 minutes and 40 seconds with the Raging Fire to defend his title for the first time. And I remember the atmosphere of the Wrestle Dynasty show not being great, but I was surprised how it looked on camera. Like, I remembered it, that it wasn't like empty. But I didn't I didn't remember it looking like that empty on the camera, because you were seeing, when they were filming Takeshita from behind, we were seeing the empty spots. And that's something you rarely see in New Japan, because they are really good at covering that stuff up. And in my opinion, they didn't do that well here. But that was, in my opinion, not something that really hurt the match. It's just something, for me, crowd is something that just can elevate a match but doesn't hurt it, if it makes sense. Like, there's a base level on how good a match can be. A crowd can make it better, but I don't think a bad crowd can make the work worse. And that was the case from here as well. For me, but still, that was like the biggest weakness, that it had like a very weak atmosphere in comparison to the night before, especially where the crowd was really loud fishing on Takeshita. Here they needed to work much harder, and they did, because for me, this was a much better version of the match Takeshita and Takagi went for the day before. And it starts with the opening stretch alone. It doesn't have like the fast start with reversals, but rather Takeshita using his size advantage to absorb Ishii's offense and dominating him for early on. But the layout itself also meant that the offense of Ishii means much more, as he needs to find ways to get his offense in. And whenever it seems like Ishii gets up at hand, Takeshita had a counter ready. If it was based on his strength, that Ishii couldn't connect his move fully, or like especially his suplexes. Or if it was just a height advantage, that Takeshita outstriked him and everything. There was, for example, a great sequence where Takeshita missed a dive extended. That was like 5 to 6 minutes into the match, and Ishii went for his typical sliding lariat to use the momentum he gained by countering by dodging Takeshita's Santon. But Takeshita saw it coming and countered it in one hell of a released German suplex to get the control instantly back. There was just one example. Another example, for example, was a bit late in the match where Ishii went for the top rope brainbuster to try to lift Takeshita. Takeshita saw it coming, but his strength was much, much more present in this match and used his strength advantage to hit a falling arrow from the top rope for an amazing new fall. That was, for example, one of my highlights of this match. And it just showed how this strength advantage and the size advantage thing went through the entire match. And it had its peak in the finishing stretch where Takeshita threw everything at Ishii, but Ishii just doesn't want to stay down. He has the passion, he has to find his eyes, and always tries to find a way to get his offense in, but none of his offense. If it is the strikes, if it's the headbutts, if it's the lariats, none of his offense had that much effect on Takeshita as a symbol of had on him. And with that, the match was pretty much inside because it was built through the entire match and had his climax here. The pure will of Ishii gave him enough power to survive long enough, but Takeshita beats him in the end with the Raging Fire to defend for the first time. And I think there was just, for me, it was maybe not the best match in an overall perspective, but it was the best match in terms of pure work. What the little details they brought into this match was just great. And what I think lacked it for me that doesn't make it the best match of the run, because, spoiler, it's the first Bolter match, it's the best match for me, was the little bit connection with Tomohiro Ishii trying to get the belt, because he's someone who has held the belt like 6 times. He has held the belt the most out of everyone. Nearly the longest, I think Shingo held it like 16 days longer, combined reigns, but still. So there wasn't that much interest in me seeing him win. That was maybe the only thing that kept it away from being the best match. But based on that, Takeshita had another big win over one of the standout names in the history of the NEVER Openweight belt, and he beat like Tomohiro Ishii and Shingo Takagi, who had a combined 11 reigns with the title. So that solidified himself as the guy to beat in Never division after just being champion for a bit over 24 hours. Big thumbs up for this match. I think they have done a lot right. My rating for that was a 4.25, and I think that's a fair rating for it. Moving on to the next title defense, we are heading now to America. New Japan Pro Wrestling Battle of the Valley 2025. Konosuke Takeshita defeats Kushida in 8 minutes with the Raging Fire to defend for the second time. That was the first NEVER title shot for Kushida in over a decade. His last one was 2014 against Tomohiro Ishii, and I didn't remember much from this specific match from Takeshita Kushida. From my first watch, I was interested how it aged, and maybe I liked it a bit more than the first time, especially since it happened at a US show. And my opinion on the US shows with New Japan is that nothing, and I really mean nothing, hits there as much as it does in Japan if it's a world title matches. Look at Goto's weakest title events, both were in America. And you can also say the same for Takeshita, in my opinion. And that was here not really just alone because of the atmosphere. The atmosphere wasn't good, but the crowd tried a lot to get into the match. But it was rather the style that took me out of it. It was a totally different style compared to his first NEVER Openweight title matches, because it felt like a Kushida match. And Kushida's a great wrestler, don't get me wrong, but I will explain why I don't think it was a smart idea to work a Kushida match here, or at least they took the wrong path with it, because there was a lot of submissions going on with Kushida going for the right arm to weaken him, because it was the only chance Kushida really had. And the idea of Kushida going for the right arm to weaken Takeshita, to get to take out his biggest strength was a really good idea. But the problem was really that instead of Takeshita dominating the match, it was Kushida. So it felt like Takeshita needed to overcome the pain to defeat Kushida. And I think it was the wrong choice made, because Takeshita was just presented as this guy that neither Ishii or Shingo could have defeated. So what I would have done here is just basically just Takeshita beating the shit out of Kushida for the whole match, and Kushida tries to find his openings with his submission locks, because he is someone who can get into the submission out of pretty much everything. So that would have been, in my opinion, the smart choice. Based on that, I found it was sadly a pretty boring and uninteresting match for a very long time, especially in the middle stretch of it, where a lot of it just went down. It happened, and I would just look at it and I thought, okay, can we just pick up the pace now? And towards the end it did, and I found the finishing stretch was well done. Takeshita retains once again with the Raging Fire, but for me this was maybe the most uninteresting match to watch. It was not bad. I would give it still 3 stars, which is a really solid match, but based on the expectations you have from those two names, it was maybe not as good as you would expect it. Moving on to the new beginning in Osaka 2025 in New Japan Pro Wrestling, we have Konosuke Takeshita defeating Boltin Oleg in 11 minutes and 33 seconds with the Raging Fire to defend for the 3rd time. This was the second match between those two after Boltin Oleg beat Takeshita in a G1 Climax B block last year, at a point where it was, in my opinion, the best match of Boltin Oleg's career. So them running it back at a show that big, a sold-out Osaka Ideon 1, makes totally sense. And I was excited going into this match because I love Boltin, and I was so excited to see him in a big spot in his first single title match since on I believe it was a World Tag League show where he faced Zack Sabre Jr. for the New Japan TV title. That was like in December 2023. So I was interested to see how he has grown since. And, well, that was, in my opinion, I've said it before, that was maybe the best match of the entire reign. That was once again more of a Takeshita match and was built around the power of both. It just started with a little bit of them locking up together and Boltin getting the upper hand, with Takeshita saying, oh, okay, he's the actual threat. And it went on with his superplex just 3 minutes in and made the camera shake. That was nuts and showed perfectly what the match will be. And Boltin was presented as a freak of nations match. His strength he has is so impressive that he picks up like Takeshita like it's nothing at points, right? Like, that was something I thought was really impressive, and it will come to that in the mini match, because it was even more impressive there, because they've built an entire match around that. But here, it was also just the beginning of it, like how the mini match will go, and it worked perfectly, in my opinion. Mixed with that, you had great elbow strike exchanges between them, and a lot of times those feel rather soft and weak. Especially Boltin in the early stage of his career had like really soft strikes, if you look back to it. But he felt personal from both, and they have a lot of strength behind it. It felt like they actually wanted to knock each other out. And Boltin, at points where he was even outstriking Takeshita, in my opinion, made his strikes really stiff. The crowd was totally hot for that. They bought every single near fall that you can imagine. They wanted to see Boltin beat the monster that Takeshita was built up to be. And for me, there was the effect of his first 2 defenses, or like his first 2 NEVER Openweight title matches against Shingo and Ishii, where he was established instantly as the guy to beat. And here in this match especially, and also in the Dominion match, and also in the Ryohei Oiwa title defense, was like, that was really the moment where that was established, helped it a lot. So the crowd was totally into it, and they wanted to see him win, but Takeshita had the big match experience that Boltin was just not having at this point, was lacking, and it wasn't what he needed to survive this title defense, and I legit mean survive. In my opinion, this was the perfect example that Takeshita brought back the NEVER spirit to the NEVER Openweight title. It was missing ever since 2021 and 2022 of the runs where Takagi had the belt, and Minoru Suzuki, because after that became I would say, an excuse to have more epic style matches with Jay White having 28-minute matches with David Finlay, Carl Anderson, everything, Tama Tonga, where the matches started to go near the 20-minute mark, if not longer. And I thought going back to this 11 to 15-minute matches is a really good decision. So I like this year, especially. Then Takeshita went on to Mexico to defend his title in CMLL against Angel Del Oro in 17 minutes and 43 seconds with the Raging Fire for his fourth defense. And I liked this so much. He stepped into the Cathedral of Lucha Libre in Marina, Mexico to defend him here against Angel Del Oro, who is someone that was kind of an interesting choice in his opponent. And as he isn't one of the top stars of CMLL, but someone who is one of the most reliable guys to have. And he deserves a huge single spot like that, in my opinion. And this was a totally different match than the other ones, because Takeshita played up his heelish antics slightly and leaned really into the hatred that became from the crowd, because he's not their guy, he's not from CMLL, he's an outsider. And he interacted with the fans ringside way more than usual compared to his compared to his New Japan outings. He wrestled more like he was in AEW, and I liked that a lot, because it gave this match a totally different feeling compared to his other NEVER Openweight title matches. Meanwhile, Angel Del Oro managed to play a great technical role, and he started to make his comeback with amazing dive out of nowhere. There was a time where he just faked Takeshita with a Topicon Hero, but instead stopped and did a Triple Suicida, which caught Takeshita off guard, something like that. He was able to do a dive out of pretty much every position, and he used it for his advantage. What I thought was a cool visual was Del Oro bleeding at his right hand, because it added a little bit to every move he busted out, because he struggled to get everything in. And it was especially seen in a submission towards the end of the match, where he had Takeshita in a lock, and he tried to reach the right arm of Takeshita with his bleeding arm, but couldn't, because, of course, of the pain. And that is something I thought was really well done, because you don't see blood at all in Arena Mexico, because it's banned. So seeing that here was really cool. For me, what made this match not as good as the Ishii and Bolton match was basically that I didn't have the exciting stretches where I thought, okay, Oro could actually win this match, because let's be real, a CML guy is not beating AW guy for New Japan belt. So that was kind of like a bit like just there. But in my opinion, what I thought, it still conveyed the kind of struggle that you need. So I would have given it a 4 stars. Like, really good match, great match, better in my opinion than the Shingo Takagi match, but it doesn't have the emotional stakes to it as the Bolton and Tomohiro Ishii match. Moving on, we are back in Japan. NEVER Openweight title match. Konosuke Takeshita defeats Ryohei Oiwa for his 5th defense at Sakura Genesis 2025. It was an important match for Ryohei Oiwa, who has struggled to really show out ever since coming back from his excursion in Noah. And in typical New Japan fashion, it threw him against a guy that tries to get the best out of everyone. And that is Konosuke Takeshita on a big show, similar to what they did with Bolton in February. And yes, I need to bring up the comparison to the Bolton match, and I think that is kind of like how we will judge the match itself later. Oiwa brought his submission game, similar to Kushida, to work over the arm of Takeshita, but unlike the Kushida match, here they had a much better flow, because it was still Takeshita who was taking control of the match while Oiwa tried to get offense by using the submission. There was like a spot around the 5-minute mark that showed it perfectly, where Takeshita tried to go for a body slam, but Oiwa countered the body slam attempt right into an arm lock and had a submission locked in. That was like the smart ways to get the submissions in without it feeling like that Takeshita is in control all the time, that Oiwa was in control all the time. I think that was something that worked really well in this match, and much better than the Kushida one in January. The finishing stretch once again worked really well because Takeshita just knows when to pick up the pace, and his opponent is always bringing up fresh and new counters to the big spots of Takeshita. Here, for example, it was Oiwa countering some of the big off into the submissions, like I mentioned earlier, but also in creative roll-ups. And that was totally different from what Ishii, Shingo, Bolton tried, because they didn't try to escape really the moves, but they tried to fire back with going like fire versus fire. And he was more like a smart mind that Oiwa had. Like, for example, he countered a knee strike into the doctor bomb, following by an arm block. That was, for example, amazing near fall instantly into another submission. That worked really well. The crowd went really nuts for that. But in the end, it was Takeshita who countered the grip, the discus lariat into an elbow, and then the Raging Fire to end the match with an amazing sequence. And with that, Takeshita broke the defense record of the most NEVER Openweight title defense in a single run. And to judge him itself, did it achieve the goal of helping Oiwa and making the next step? And that is what you need to judge his match on. And I would say yes, but also no. It was a really great match. It was maybe the best Oiwa match he had since coming back. And he really stepped up to the occasion, had a really good performance. But the match wasn't next level great as it should have been, because something was lacking, and especially the Bolton match, where he had the similar precision, a young guy that needed to show out against Takeshita, who comes in as this dominant champion. And something here was just lacking. Maybe it was just the vibes of the entire show, because let's be real, Sakura Genesis wasn't a bad show. I thought Sakura Genesis was a really good show, but in comparison to New Beginning in Osaka, it was just good compared to fantastic. Maybe it was that, but maybe it was also just that Bolton is a more exciting wrestler from his style that makes him stand out more. Maybe the expectations with Oiwa were a lot higher because he had more of the pressure that Bolton had, who already has now 2 years in New Japan as a main talent, and also wrestling in G1, while Oiwa just came back and is trying to find his footing. I don't know really what it was, but I thought that it wasn't as great of a performance Oiwa needed to get out of the current role he is in. But I still would give the match 3.75 out of 5. Still a really good match. Maybe one of the bottom ones that he had. I would put it on a level with Shingo, but still a good match, but maybe not that what it should have been in the end in terms of reaching the heights. Then we are coming to the final successful defense of Konosuke Takeshita, as he defended successfully the NEVER Openweight Championship against El Phantasmo in 17 minutes and 48 seconds with the Raging Fire for the 6th defense. And this was a match set up following Takeshita defeating Tanahashi at the last US show before that, where both went into a little argument backstage. They had done a TV title match at Wrestling Dontaku just 2 weeks before this one, and that one ended at a timely draw. And to be honest, I found it was the least favorite Takeshita defense. It was actively, like, I'm not even kidding, I thought it was actively not good at points and not worthy for the run Takeshita's on. And I don't even want to blame El Phantasmo for that, because I thought, while it wasn't his best outings, we have seen Takeshita and Phantasmo having great matches together. I thought the TV title match in Dontaku was much, much better than the one. And don't get me started on the G1 Climax match I had last year in the Hurricane Hall. That was tremendous. But this one was just there. Part of it, of course, was the problem I have with the America shows, but also what I found was really annoying and really pissed me off was the constant distractions from Rocky Romero in this match to help Takeshita to get the control back, because he does not need that. Takeshita does not need a manager on the outside who interferes. I get it. The storyline is there with, of course, with Rocky Romero and El Phantasmo. They have feuded with each other for like years, back to 2019, I believe, when their fantastic Best of Super Juniors match was. I totally get it, but I just didn't need it here. I thought it was kind of a distraction. It killed the flow of the match. And I don't know. It felt lifeless, I would say. I think that's the best way to describe it. It just was lifeless, not interesting. And sadly just there. And especially the finish was stand out here, because Takeshita does not need interference with Rocky Romero, who pulls out the ref that Konosuke Takeshita can defeat El Fantasma, someone he had his number all the time and has been booked so strong. And for me, it was just a silly finish to get heat on Takeshita that he didn't need. He just should have won clean, and then you can build up to the third match of the year. In the G1 Climax, it will happen where Takeshita likely is losing to El Fantasma. I think it would have worked perfectly instead of randomly involving Rocky Romero into this. Something that happens way too often. Rocky Romero interfering in stuff he doesn't believe needs to. I gave that 2.5 stars. Maybe a bit low, but I thought it was just lame. It was just lifeless. It was just overbooking just too much. Then we get to the match where the title run of Konosuke Takeshita ended. New Japan Dominion in Osaka Joe Hall. Bolton Oleg defeats Konosuke Takeshita in 30 minutes and 12 seconds with the Kamikaze to win the belt. The failed 7th defense of Takeshita, and we have the 38th champion. Bolton and Takeshita won coming into this match. Takeshita, of course, won the one in February and defended his title there. So it was an obvious feeling that Bolton will win this one coming into this match, but nobody was sure based on the run Takeshita was on, based on how strong he was booked as the NEVER Openweight champion, who he has defeated. So it was interesting how Bolton has developed ever since the star-making performance he had in the beginning. But based on the entrance, nothing really has changed for him. Meanwhile, Takeshita, who looked like a mega scion in his white coat, in my opinion, his best gear he had ever. He looked like an actual ace. He looked like the top star he is. Fantastic gear for him. I loved how this had a very similar start to the first match, but Takeshita saw this time the body check that Bolton used in the first match to get the early advantage. He saw it coming here and blocked it with a big boot before eventually still falling to it. It felt like that Takeshita has studied Bolton and knew he was the greatest threat in his side run so far. And boy, he was right with that one. They presented Bolton once again as a freak of nature in this match, but more than ever before, because he countered some of the stuff Takeshita did, and you would just ask yourself, how the hell did he do that? As an example, he caught Takeshita mid-air after flying lariat attempt and threw him to the outside with an F5. And I was like, what the hell? And that led to a great spot on the ramp where he just threw Takeshita down the ramp after doing the Bolton shake. That looked fantastic. But at the same time, it also felt like the Takeshita often had more power behind it normally. Because he was so stiff, his elbows looked so godly, his knee strikes looked great. And I thought that was maybe the best performance he personally had, together with the Issue one in his title run. And I thought he just looked great. He made Bolton look like a star. The finishing stretch here was fantastic as well, with Bolton countering the knee strike into the Kamikaze as a finish. That was just tremendous and a perfect way to not only end this match, but also the title run of Takeshita here. For me, this was the perfect last defense that you could have picked and made Bolton look like an absolute top guy here, while Takeshita now can move up the card for the G1 Climax in the upcoming Wrestle Kingdom season, where he will be needed an absolute top match. I believe the last few months of New Japan has shown that he is needed in bigger spots. He will be put into bigger spots. And yeah, that was the run in terms of matches itself. So I would just go quick over the booking. It was a great NEVER title run that achieved its goal of not only elevating Konosuke Takeshita inside the New Japan universe, because he was in G1 Climax, but many of the G1 of the New Japan audience didn't really know him before that. So they gave him a lot of big matches to show his quality inside the ring, but also used him to elevate, especially Bolton Oleg, to the next level with one of my favorite trilogies of this decade, especially in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I thought the G1 match was great. their Osaka match at New Beginning was fantastic. And then, of course, you had this great final match between them at Dominion and had this freak of nature Bolton and defeat Takeshita. I thought that was very well done, but also the names he defeated, especially Shingo and Ishii at the beginning. I said it earlier, it set the stone for his title run, and he's the guy to beat in the Never division. And Takeshita himself made the Never title feel like a big belt again, something that has been missing in New Japan for a very long time. Like, if you go back, of course, to the prime days of the Never division, but also like back to 2020, 2021, especially when Shingo Takagi was the champion for the first time, where he had this great match against Sho and a great match series against Minoru Suzuki, and then went on to defeat Jeff Cobb at Wrestle Kingdom in a fantastic match. That was like the peak of the Never Openweight division, like the last peak for the Never Openweight division. After that, you had a lot of long matches with Jay White, with Tama Tonga, David Finlay, that, in my opinion, didn't really deliver. So going back to the simple side, 12 to 15-minute matches, just going all out, just worked for me perfectly. To compare to other title reigns, I would put it definitely in one of the top 5 Never title runs I've seen, mainly because it was one of the title runs that just had some importance to it in the end, but also was one of the longer title runs, because Never title runs aren't really long. Like, they mostly go just around 60 days, 1 or 2 defenses, and dropping it. So having so many successful title defenses, breaking the defense record after just 100 days, and then went on for another 2 months with the belt, defending it in Mexico and America, just makes this belt stand out. Even though it wasn't like the important match on the cards, it was always one of the match of the night contenders. It was, in my opinion, the second best match on Sakura Genesis. It was, in my opinion, the second best match on both Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty. And of course, the second best match maybe at Dominion and New Beginning as well. Like, every New Japan card was on, it was just a great match that elevated the card, and it's the most important thing about a mid-card title. Like, his role wasn't to main event the New Japan shows to sell the tickets, but it was to keep the mid-card alive, and Takeshita did it really well. So in my opinion, he achieved his job. I would give the title run like an A for that, simply because, of course, he did everything he needed to do to elevate the belt, to elevate a new wrestler, and that's all you can really ask for. Like, I think to reach the peak, he just would have needed maybe not a match like the one against El Fantasma or Kushida, but one more fantastic match on the level of the Bolton or Ishii match. Yeah, and with that, we talked about the title run of Konosuke Takeshita, the Never Openweight title run, nearly 40 minutes. I didn't expect it to go that long, but I hope you all enjoyed listening to this. I will try to do that more often, just me yapping. It's not meant to be some great video with tons of editing skills, because, to be honest, I just don't have them. So I will just yap my life here and talk about stuff. So I hope you all enjoyed. Leave a like and comment down below. Give me critics if it's anything. Like, I don't know what I can do better, what I should introduce in the series, and of course recommendations if it's title runs I should review, or maybe some other stuff I should talk about. I have a lot planned, so make sure you follow me also on Twitter at @pepsi_wrestling. And with that, bye bye.